the biblical world, a name was never just a label. A name was a prophecy, a window into the soul, a declaration of destiny. Abraham, father of many. Isaac, he laughs. Jacob, he supplants. Every name in Scripture carries weight. But there is one name that is different. One name that does not just describe a person's character, it forecasts their entire future. Ishmael, Yishma'el. It means God hears. And from the moment that name was spoken, Ishmael's fate was sealed. Not by his own choices, not by his own actions, but by the very sound of his name. The angel of the Lord told Hagar, "You shall call his name Ishmael, for the Lord has heard your affliction." Genesis 16:11. But here is the terrifying truth that most people miss. The name God hears was not just a comfort for Hagar. It was a contract for Ishmael. Stick with me, because once you understand how Ishmael's name predetermined his fate and its dark connection to desolation, you will understand something essential about God's sovereignty, his justice, and his mysterious mercy. Let's start with the name itself. Ishmael is built from two Hebrew words, shama, meaning to hear, to listen, to obey, and el, meaning God. Put them together, Yishma'el. It means God hears, or God will hear. Now, here is what most people miss. The name is not just a description of God, it is a promise about Ishmael. Every time someone spoke Ishmael's name, they were declaring, God hears. But they were also declaring something else. God heard Hagar's affliction, and God would continue to hear Ishmael's cries. The name was not passive, it was active. It was not just a label, it was a lens through which Ishmael's entire life would be interpreted. And here is a profound insight from biblical scholars. Many scholars note that the angel commanded Hagar to name the child Ishmael so that she would remember that God heard her affliction. Abraham later called him by the same name, either because he wanted God to hear him or because he understood the prophetic weight of the name. The name was a memorial, a permanent reminder that God sees the invisible and hears the unheard. But here is where it gets truly terrifying. There is a name in the Bible, Yishma, that appears in 2 Kings 25:11 and other passages. And that name means something entirely different. While Yishma'el means God hears, the name Yishma, spelled almost identically, means desolation or devastation. The root is yasham, meaning to lie waste or to be desolate. One single letter, the aleph, separates the name God hears from the word desolation. Now, here is the theological bombshell. Ishmael's name is phonetically and visually connected to desolation. And his life, his entire destiny, was shaped by that connection. The promise of being heard is fulfilled within a life of desolation. The angel of the Lord did not just give Hagar a name, he gave her a prophecy. He will be a wild donkey of a man. His hand will be against everyone, and everyone's hand will be against him, and he will live in hostility toward all his brothers. Genesis 16:12. Now, here is what most people miss. The prophecy is a direct extension of the name. Because God heard Hagar's affliction, he would protect Ishmael. But the protection would come in the form of wildness and solitude. Biblical scholars explain that the phrase, wild donkey of a man, means Ishmael would be free and uncontrolled. No one would place a burden on him. The wild donkey is a creature of the desert. It is untamable. It is self-sufficient. It survives in the harshest conditions. And that is exactly what Ishmael would become. The name God hears guaranteed that Ishmael would survive. But the prophecy guaranteed that he would survive alone. His hand would be against everyone, and everyone's hand would be against him. That is not a curse. That is a description of a life shaped by the name God hears, a life lived in the desolation of the wilderness. Now, we come to the darkest moment of Ishmael's life. Sarah sees Ishmael mocking Isaac during the Feast of Weaning. She demands that Hagar and Ishmael be sent away. Abraham is distressed, but God reassures him, "Do not be distressed about the boy. I will make a nation of the slave woman's son, because he is your offspring." And so Hagar and Ishmael are cast into the wilderness of Beersheba. They run out of water. Hagar places the boy under a bush and waits to die. And then, the name is fulfilled. God heard the voice of the boy, and the angel of God called to Hagar from heaven. Do not be afraid, for God has heard the voice of the boy where he lies. Ishmael was heard. His name, the name given to him before he was born, was the very thing that saved his life. God opened Hagar's eyes to a well of water. Ishmael survived. He grew up in the wilderness and became an archer. The name God hears was not a passive label. It was a lifeline. And the desolation, the wilderness, was not a curse. It was the very place where God's promise was fulfilled. The paradox is profound. Ishmael was protected not in spite of the wilderness, but through it. Now, let's bring this all together. Ishmael's name predetermined his fate, but not in the way you might think. His name did not force him to become a wild donkey. His name described what he would become. God knew that Ishmael would be a wild donkey of a man. God knew that his hand would be against everyone, but God also knew that he would hear him. The name God hears was not a guarantee of a comfortable life. It was a guarantee of divine attention. Ishmael would suffer. He would be exiled. He would live in hostility. He would live in desolation, but he would never be forgotten. This is the theological bombshell of Ishmael's story. God's hearing is not reserved for the chosen. It is for the cast out, the forgotten, the marginalized, those living in desolation. Ishmael was not the child of the covenant. He was the child of the slave woman, and yet God heard him in the wilderness. Now let's bring this home. Ishmael's name was a prophecy. His fate was sealed before he was born. But here's the question that haunts every person who hears this story. What is your name saying about you? Because in the biblical world, a name was not just a label. It was a declaration of identity and destiny. Ishmael's name said, God hears. But his name also whispered, desolation. And both were true. Here is the terrifying truth. Your name does not just describe who you are, it shapes who you become. But here's the good news. God renames people. Abram became Abraham. Sarai became Sarah. Jacob became Israel. And one day, if you let him, God will give you a new name. A name that declares who you really are, beyond the desolation. But I have saved the most shocking detail for last. Ishmael's name, Yishma'el, is spelled with the letter Aleph A in the middle. One single letter, the Aleph, separates God hears from desolation. And that Aleph represents God. Remove God from the name, and all that remains is desolation. Keep God in the name, and the desolation becomes a place of hearing. The difference between destruction and salvation is one letter, and that letter is God. Next, I am going to take you deep into the story of Hagar, the woman who named God El Roi, the God who sees. And I am going to show you why the three names, God hears, God sees, and desolation, are the most comforting and terrifying words in all of Scripture. God hears, even in desolation, even in the wilderness, even when no one else listens.